Legacy. And he does have multiple top 8s in Legacy Open Series events. You can add this one to his resume as well. And he's got Blue-White Red Delver here, and we are going to be underway. Big smile on both players' faces. They are ready to play some magical cards, and we are ready to watch it happen. Guibault going to get to play first since he's the highest seed. A Tundra, and we're underway here in the semifinals of our Open Series here in Indianapolis, Indiana. We'll see how Tragos wants to start his turn. He's got an Arid Mesa. And does he have any fetching to do? Any cantripping? No, nothing. Passes it back.
Josh wants to wait until his main phase to brainstorm here.
And so that's what he's going to start. 3 cards coming. Spell Pierce among them. He also has a Delver Secrets and a Swords to Plowshares in his hand.
And he has found a second and now third land for the True Name Nemesis that's in his hand as well.
Your favorite card?
It's not my least favorite card.
What is your least favorite card?
That's a really good question. I'll have to think about it.
Okay. I look forward to your reply.
I mean, there's a really good chance the answer is Wasteland, but I would have to think about it some.
Okay.
So Josh is going to break his fetch land here.
Let's see if he's going to deploy a Delver Secrets this turn. I imagine that he is. Now, of course, this matchup, it is unlikely that Delver Secrets hangs around very long. We're both have access, to Swords, Plowshares, and Lightning Bolt. Basically, you're jockeying for position, playing stuff. It's going to get answered by things like that, and then it's the person who has a True Name Nemesis in play normally gets the job done.
Yeah, Stoneforge Mystic unchecked can go get Batterskull. That's very powerful. But the easiest path to victory is just landing True Name Nemesis and hoping the other player does not have one.
And the deck lists here are very, very similar. You're going to find decks that have a lot of spells, some equipment, and 2 copies of True Name Nemesis in the main deck. So very, very, very similar list. Just basically taking Owen Turtenwald's deck list and just changing around a few cards.
Oh, I haven't answered the question.
Oh, I can't wait.
It's Stifle.
That's your least favorite card?
In Legacy, yeah. It's the one that annoys me the most, I think, because it does some of the same, land screw elements that Wasteland does that I'm not a huge fan of.
Okay.
Additionally, the amount of time that gets wasted in the average Legacy round with each player stopping each other in response to each other's fetch lands in the off chance that there's a Stifle floating around in someone's deck, a lot of time gets wasted because of the presence of the card in the format.
I actually kind of like Stifle. It's just good, clean fun.
There's some interesting gameplay as a result of it, but I think the time that we all lose from our lives by its existence.
Yes. As Daze is going to take care of and have Swords of Plowshares. I'm more a fan of Stifle because it just makes people unhappy.
Oh sure.
Just get to dagger their land. Feels really, really good. Lightning Bolt going to take care of the Delver this go around. But again, as we established yesterday, my definition of fun different than yours.
If you argue from the position that fun is zero sum, which some people do, then everything is equally as fun. So that can be a thing. I'm not saying that's wrong.
Patrick, some people just want to watch the world burn.
Right.
That's all. Stoneforge Mystic in the house here for Guibault.
And Peter appears, he has True Name Nemesis and Stoneforge Mystic, but no removal spell for the Stoneforge.
So let's see what equipment's going to be. You mentioned the discussion of is it Batterskull or is it Sword of Fire and Ice or is it Umezawa's Jite that you do search for. Because there's a real decision to be made there, as you mentioned. If Stoneforge Mystic goes away, your Batterskull is going to take a long time to come into play.
Yeah, but Josh might not be in a position to realistically cast the sword and get another creature in play anyway if the Stoneforge is to die, so goes for the play with the highest upside and goes and finds Batterskull.
Tragos going to draw a card here. He actually has the initiative back now because of Guibault's Daze early to take care of that Source of Plowshares. Here's a Wasteland. This might be a Stoneforge of his own, and it is. So that means he does not have an answer for the Stoneforge that's on the table. Now, one thing that he can do is try to go after the white source and cross his fingers.
Yeah, and you see him play in this order. To play around Daze, he's giving up a little bit of information by having a Wasteland available, which Josh has to mull over all the consequences of this, but Peter very careful not to walk into a Daze here with his Stoneforge Mystic.
That's interesting, too, because, Guibault's looking at the Daze in his hand saying, okay, if I Daze this, then he can't Wasteland my white source. And he's basically representing that he has a Daze, and it's like, okay, if I Daze, he pays the one with the Wasteland, but then I'm able to get Batterskull into play. But if I
And some news from the other side of the bracket. Ad nauseam tendrils up a game.
That didn't take too long.
No,
We're
that did
we
not.
are. If you look at the clock, we are. You guessed it. Now we are 5 minutes in.
Right.
5 minutes in. But yeah, I mean, if he dazes, then he makes him pay. I guess Tragos could make the decision to not pay for the daze. I can't imagine that that would happen. As Guibault is going to draw a card. It is not what he is looking for. Not the white source. So there's Lightning Bolt to take care of the Stoneforge Mystic. That's a step in the right direction. And now Stoneforge feeling frisky, going to get in the red zone. Put Tragos down to 18.
But Peter may have a window here to try to stick a True Name Nemesis.
If you the problem with that, I think, is that with Guibault pausing with the Stoneforge Mystic on the stack, I think it's a pretty loud declaration that he has a daze.
Oh, he would need to have something else to back up this True Name Nemesis. Yeah. I would not just run it out there naked, as it were. But
and I like continuing to play around days here. You see Stoneforge Mystic going to come into play with the 1 mana up. We'll see what it searches out this time. And it's going to go get Batter Skull.
And this matchup has a lot of the same elements that the Rug Delver Mirror has, where players are basically jockeying over mana. That's one of the big fights.
Yep.
And there's a Stifle in these decks, so that changes the amount of land destruction that's going on. But both players need to get to 3 mana for True Name Nemesis. So it's kind of the same thing. Both players need a lot of mana, and their mana is being fought over. And so the first person who can actually get out and land something of significance has a huge edge.
All right, well, Stoneforge has found some equipments, and Guibault is having the mana issues here. Able to find any, and more importantly, no cantrips to find any either.
He is both missing total mana and white mana, so he can't cast the Swords of Plowshares in his hand. And now Peter's going to be able to take a huge edge in this game.
Delver's Secret's going to come into play here, but again, Delver's Secrets isn't a card that plays a huge role in this matchup. There are tempo draws that can take place, but again, when you have both players playing 4 Lightning Bolts and 4 Swords of Plowshares, it's so unlikely that a Delver's going to get the job done. Swords of Plowshares here from Tragos on the end step, and while he did run it, it got dazed. It's like he ran it into a daze to me.
No, and part of that, I believe, is that there is some risk if you're in Peter's seat that if Josh draws a white source of mana, he can put his own Batter Skull into play. So this play hedges a little bit about that because he now doesn't have 2 mana total, even if he draws a Tundra.
Yep.
So that gives him a window to land True Name Nemesis and also make sure that Josh can't race back by getting his own Batter Skull into play.
I like that play a lot by Tragos.
Yeah, that was a good spot to run into daze.
Here's another copy of Delver's Secrets. Force of Will was the reveal to turn the Delver into a flying 3/2 Insectile Aberration, which is going to come into the red zone now. But the most important card that's on the table is not on Guibault's side. It's on Tragos's, and it's the 3/1 True Name Nemesis.
We've seen this song and dance before.
And this is exactly what Tragos can do now. He can activate this. He can put his GT into play. And True Name Nemesis with equipment is super happy fun time. And that is a quick concession. So Josh Guibault is going to concede game number 1. Peter Tragos, he's got 1 on his side. Blue Red Delver up a game, which is a strange thing to say. But Tragos going to win game number 1 as we're going to bring it back to the booth here. Cedric Phillips, Patrick Sullivan, trivia time. 6 months. Your question now. You ready? You're not ready, are you?
No.
No.
I ain't gotten this far.
Pathetic.
I'll have a good one for the finals.
I bet you will. I bet you will.
All right. We already know what that one is.
I do know that one is since we discussed it over breakfast this morning. I'm just so glad you came prepared. We are going to take a look here.
I was expecting that game to take a little bit longer. It was faster than I anticipated.
You got to be able to adjust on the fly. I'll teach you some things.
All right.
While we do the traveling this year. Within Josh Guibault's decklist, SCG Premium, hashtag SCG Premium, 6 months, all that good stuff. Announced the winner at the conclusion of the semifinal round. Probably won't take that long. Within Josh Guibault's decklist, he has an equipment that Peter Tragos does not in the Stoneforge Mystic package. Now, Mr. Tragos has a Batter Skull Noom's Jite. Guibault has equipment, again, that Mr. Tragos does not. If you can name that equipment that Josh Guibault does have that Peter Tragos does not in his main deck, hashtag your answer, hashtag SCG Premium on Twitter. And again, we will announce the winner at the conclusion of our semifinal round. On the one side of the bracket, we've got Peter Tragos up a game over Guibault. On the other side, we have Ad Nauseam up a game over 30 Terminates, John Depps. So it might be a quick semifinal round. We might be announcing that winner pretty soon here as we're going to bring it back over to the match. You've got Guibault's list in front of you, so let's take a look at the sideboard.
I really like 3 copies of Grim Lavamancer. Allows you to fight over Stoneforge Mystic and Delver Secrets, of course. And the graveyard's not really a resource this deck is using otherwise. It's also another thing to put equipment on and tax removal, all that good stuff. There is a copy of Wear and Tear that I really like here because, of course, the equipment matters quite a bit. And 2 copies of Pyroblast, which is really good because Peter has a bunch of blue cards in his deck, most notably True Name Nemesis.
Powerful card, definitely worth countering.
Potent.
Yes. Taking a look at Tragos' sideboard, 3 red elemental blast, 2 copies of Meddling Mage, a Sword of Feast and Famine, a Sword of Fire and Ice, True Name Nemesis number 3 in the board, 2 copies of Wear and Tear, 2 Rest in Peace, a Grafdigger's Cage, a Grim Lava Master, and a Forked Bolt. So, red elemental blast, we obviously like here. You got to win that fight over True Name Nemesis. That's super important. Meddling Mage not particularly good in this matchup. Again, a deck that has 4 lightning bolts and 4 copies of Swords of Plowshares. Sword of Feast and Famine, I don't care for very much here, but Sword and Fire and Ice, I think we obviously love. Great thing to put onto, of course, True Name Nemesis. The additional True Name Nemesis, yeah, 100% coming in. You can expect that. 2 copies of Wear and Tear. We have a little bit of an equipment battle here.
Yes.
So I think it's worth bringing in that Disenchant effect.
Absolutely, and we've seen in the way that these games play out, there's a lot of stuff that's happening in the games that don't really matter all that much. Like you mentioned, the Delver of Secrets tempo draws are really hard to get going. The fights are over mana, equipment, and True Name Nemesis. Those are the battles that you need to win. Anything that is productive in those fights, either by facilitating your own or breaking up your opponents, seem very powerful. Anything that's not about that seems pretty low impact. So I would expect to see some of the Delver of Secret type cards cut. I would anticipate some of the Permission perhaps getting cut, and the fight being about equipment, True Name Nemesis, and similar cards.
Singleton Grafdigger's Cage, don't care for. Grim Lava Mancer, I agree with you. We know Guibault's going to bring his, and I believe that Tragos should bring in his Singleton one. And then there's a single Fork Bolt. Would give him a 9th spot removal spell. I guess it's good enough since it kills Delver and it kills Stoneforge. So I mean, does he need 9?
Well,
Is the question.
It depends what you're replacing it with. I think the Permission is pretty tough to be productive, and especially now that both players have copies of Red Elemental Blast or Pyroblast or what have you in the deck. So I would probably be looking to de-emphasize the low-impact blue cards, and to me that feels like Spell Pierce and Daze are those type of cards.
All right, wow. As we do see both players sideboard up. Again, Peter Tragos does win game number 1 here. Guibault's going to be on the play. He is your number 1 seed, but Tragos was able to break serve. Super important for him. On the other side of the bracket, we have Ethan Jane Washburn playing Spoiler to everyone's favorite deck of the top 8 here, the Junk Dark Depths deck. Ken and Haas down a game right now against Ant, but, do you believe in miracles?
I mean, it depends what we define as a miracle. This is something else entirely. This actually, I at the risk of hyperbole, there's a chance this is the most lopsided match we've ever had in the elimination rounds of a Legacy Open ever.
Yeah, I mean, it felt. I remember when Lance used to play against Storm and how one-sided it was, and this is.
I think it's even worse. At least Lance had Chalice of the Voids in the sideboard or something.
To try to steal a win.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something like that could happen. I mean, we're taking a look at Haas's sideboard, even though we're not watching the match right now. He's got a Sphere of Resistance. That's really about it. That's really about it. Yeah. So you see both players taking a look at the opening hands. There's a Tundra. There's a Delver of Secrets. Now again, this isn't a card that I think you have to protect very much if you're Guibault, but it's a card that if you're Tragos, you just have to kill.
Well, it depends. Not at the expense of your development, I think. This feels a lot less like the Rug matchup, which is, sometimes the incremental damage matters a little bit. When someone gets an edge in this matchup because it's Stoneforge Mystic or True Name Nemesis, the edge they generate is so overwhelming that the incremental damage matters very little. Also, usually someone in the process of running someone else out of the gym is gaining a bunch of life through Umezawa's Jute or Batterskull. So, in general, I agree. You want to err on the side of just killing things as they come up. You don't want to be taking the points of damage if you don't have to. But I think this matchup has a slightly different texture than the Rug Delver matchup, where your life total is really at a premium.
Well, Guibault is certainly ahead right now. Stoneforge Mystic going to resolve, get a Sword of Fire and Ice. Delver didn't flip, but it's going to be able to get into the red zone. So Tragos has certainly got some catching up to do, because all he has is a lone Arid Mace, and Guibault's hand looks pretty good. He's got a Bolt over there. He does have the equipment that he wants to get online pretty soon, and doesn't search for Batterskull this go-around. He already had it in his hand. So if Stoneforge Mystic does die, he actually has an equipment, that he can deploy, which is super, super important in this matchup, because there's not a great chance that Stoneforge Mystic is going to live.
But Josh's hand, for as good as it is actually kind of feeble if Peter has a removal spell and a way to stop True Name Nemesis.
Sure. That's really all that it does take. All right, there's a bolt. Get that thing out of here. We're going to see a Force Will or Daze. We're going to see a Force Will immediately removing Tree Nemesis. How do you feel about that?
Uh, it's a gutsy play, but his hand's pretty bad if this Stoneforge Mystic dies. So
Okay.
I'm happy to give it a shot.
I mean, that was immediate. Like Guibault had already made the decision that if he tries to kill my creature, I'm going to immediately Force of Will
He
this.
can't cast the bolt in his hand. The rest of his hand is 2 pieces of equipment. I don't really see how his hand's functional unless he draws a land the following turn and True Nemesis resolves, which is no guarantee either. So it's gutsy, but given the way his hand is set up, I like it. And it looks like this Stoneforge is going to get to untap.
Yeah. Force of Will, gonna flip it over. So now it's like the Aberrations in the house, and the Force Will in the grip there for Guibault. So Guibault is he's doing well.
It looks like he might be missing white mana.
Here's a Red Blast. We know that's not going to get countered here. See the hand of Guibault. He's got a Sword of Fire and Ice, a Batter Skull, and the other card in there. And the Force Will's going to go to the grip, and the other card is a Lightning Bolt.
You know, again, for as good as Josh's start was here, he is really leaning on the Stoneforge Mystic. He actually not only needs to get his equipment into play, but if something happens, you know, he's also short creatures to equip things as well.
Wear and tear in the hand, so Tragos isn't too concerned about the equipment that's going to come in. The question is what equipment's going to come in here. It is Batter Skull, yeah, killing that immediately. Yep, so he's able to tag that. The power of the Shatter effect in this matchup. Force of Will, the draw, so back-to-back Force of Will, so Guibault can protect himself. Stoneforge Mystic, gonna sit there again, saying, hey, I want to put something into play. Tragos is going to be really interested in probably pulling the trigger on Wasteland now.
Yeah, I mean, he's, you know, right now Josh is playing a game plan where he kind of just has to hope that Peter's hand is missing stuff, whether it's removal or whatever, because he's playing very aggressively with his Force of Wills. Not to say that he's making a mistake, because his hand only allows him to do that. But
Agreed.
I think that if Peter has another removal spell here for the Stoneforge, you're going to see another use of Force of Will. He's going to hope that he can put the sword onto the Stoneforge Mystic, and that's good enough.
So let's see how we want to resolve a Brainstorm here for Mr. Tragos. A lot of options, obviously. You see the Red Blast, the Sword, the GT. Kind of wants to Wasteland, so he kind of wants to find some lands as well. He's got to Ponder. A lot of stuff to look at.
Yeah, the Wasteland potentially has a lot of upside here because it would, you know, Josh's missed land drops. He'd have to draw a land to be able to equip that sword.
Yep.
So.
Well, it's got to be a good feeling knowing that you don't have to worry about Batter Skull the rest of the game, too.
Yep.
If you're Tragos, that can certainly weigh into your decision. That part of the equation is over with. Alright, pass the turn back. No Wasteland. Maybe we Wasteland now? We do. Okay. Now if Guibault is able to rip off a land, we're looking at some trouble here for Mr. Tragos. Take a draw. It's a Stoneforge.
Alright.
And just an attack for 1. So
Peter
Tragos
breathing a sigh of relief.
yeah, I was going to say Tragos was able to dodge that bullet there. He's going to sacrifice this on his upkeep. Probably go get a blue-white land. There's a Tundra. Make sure he has access to all the colors in his deck. And that's kind of been the highlight of this matchup here so far, as Guibault had some real mana issues in these games. Not able to draw lands on time to be able to do what he needs to do. As drawing a land there really, really turns around the game.
I mean, it's not too surprising. Both of these decks have cheap removal to make the game drag out a little bit, and a bunch of wastelands. So, and not that many total lands in their deck. So, all of this adds up to a recipe of, you know, players will struggle with mana.
Ponder time. Tragos is the one with the cantrips. See True Name, Delver, and a Tundra. I think the most important of those cards is the land. You know, True Name is obviously great in this matchup if it can resolve. That land is going to play a huge role just to allow Tragos to do what's most important, which is cast multiple spells in one turn. The tough part here is, while the land is super important, and the True Name is okay, I mean, he's got plenty of things to do in his hand. The Delver, the third card, is a card that I don't think he really cares very much for.
No.
But if he decides to keep it the Ponder, he's kind of stuck keeping those cards, so I think that's kind of what's weighing in his decision. Also, he already has a Tree Nemesis, so realistically, the only card that he really may want there is the land. And then he's almost stuck having to keep the other cards.
Yeah, this is a tough one for sure.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Oh, yes. Kenan Haas ties it up.
going to 3. That is insanity.
Yes, that is the word. I'm gonna have to ask Ruben Bressler. I know he's
That is insanity.
yeah, he is there. He's there covering this match, writing it up. So I gotta know what happened. The sleeper hold must have gotten put in really quick. There is a Scalding Tarn.
And Peter's hand is really set up well to fight over anything that Josh draws, but he's not really that well equipped to beat the board.
Oh, Josh finally drew a land. There's a Scalding Tarn of his own. So sacrifice that. Gonna go get a Volcanic Island. And we might see a little equips. The big question here is like, would he be afraid to equip his guy? But I don't think he has a choice.
Well, he has Force of Will backup, and again,
That's true.
his hand allows him to do nothing else.
Yeah.
We are forced down this road right now.
Force will backup being the big thing. Makes the decision all the easier. Time for an equip. Good to go. Take a hit. And all of a sudden, in a game that was looking really favorable for Tragos, this game is looking ugly now for him. Because even if he plays a Trini Nemesis, protection from blue, good spot to be in. And Guibault does draw a land off of the sword trigger, so he is right back into this game. As you do see the Dark Steel rare, arguably the best card in that limited format.
Really high on the list.
Yeah, I lost many a game to that card in Mirror to Mirror and Dark Steel Limited.
I suspect Skull Clamp was better, but it is close.
It was really close.
Yeah,
it was super close.
High praise for something to be in the same league as Skull Clamp, certainly.
I remember a game playing in a Grand Prix. My opponent played a turn 3 sword, and never drew a creature.
Yes.
Yeah, running good. He was not too pleased after the game ended, but that's understandable. As True Nemesis is going to be placed onto the stack here by Tragos.
And unclear if Josh actually even wants to use a Force of Will here.
Yeah, I don't think he has much of a reason to. Why does he care?
Right.
What are you doing, True Nemesis? As good as you are, you don't matter. Attack here for 3, 4, 5 with the trigger. Tragos on the old 2-turn clock right now. Guibault gets to draw a card, and you can really see just how good Sword of Fire and Ice is in this matchup. It is really good here.
Yeah, I mean, protection from blue means that it's not just True Nemesis playing Moat.
Yeah. It is such a big deal. I mean, Batterskull is certainly good in this matchup, but, you have to figure out which equipment that you want. Do you want Sword? Do you want Cheetah? Do you want Batterskull? Again, there are situations where Batterskull is good, but you can't realistically expect Stoneforge to live to be able to put Batterskull into play. As a result, you need equipment that you can actually hardcast in a timely manner.
Yeah, swords are castable. Batterskull realistically is not. Batterskull gets trumped by True Nemesis. Sword of Fire and Ice is not. So, as obvious and overwhelming as Batterskull can be at times, there's actually some subtle reasons why Sword is actually the better equipment in this matchup.
True name. Red zone time? Can't block. Might be worth it just to get in there. In a situation where it's not really doing much else. There's a bolt. I think that might be going upstairs.
I would assume so.
Yeah, here's a Spell Pierce. It says not quite yet. This one's not over just yet, says Tragos. So, Guibault's going to untap his permanents. And, yep, Tragos says, all right, can't do anything to beat this. So, third and final is where we're headed between these two players. Both are semifinal matchups in the third and final game. We did not expect one of them to be there.
Yeah, a curious game. I mean, like we said, very much about True Nemesis and equipment. Peter's hand is very well equipped to handle True Nemesis, multiple red elemental blasts and other counter spells. Not really that well equipped to handle Stoneforge Mystic, and Josh drew enough of them, and Peter didn't find enough removal where, as far ahead as Peter was in card count and some other aspects of the game, Stoneforge Mystic plus Sword just sort of stole it.
Yeah. But I feel like that's how this goes a lot here. It can either be Sword, it can either be GT, but I feel like in the blue-red mirror nowadays, because of True Name and everything that happens here, and how they have so much spot removal, it really honestly feels as though it's not really a Batter Skull war anymore.
No.
Where a lot of the time it was just like, okay, get Batter Skull and play. I gotta have Swords for this or the Stoneforge, or it's over, or I can't win. It's really annoying. Because Stoneforge, just realistically, again, it's just not going to live that off when you've got 4 bolts, you've got 4 swords. After sideboard, some number of lava manchers it looks like are becoming the industry standard. Tragos has a forked bolt too. I mean, we're talking a ton of spot removal against a 2 toughness creature. That thing is dying.
Right. But the game's going to go on for a long time unless someone basically gets wastelanded out of the game.
Yes.
And so things like swords are actually castable if these games go on for a long time. Yeah. Although that game, oddly enough, the Stoneforge Mystic actually just kind of survived.
So we'll see how the other match is going. As when we do find out the result, we'll let you know. Certainly surprised that Ken and Haas was able to tie it up against Ethan Jane Washburn, Ad Nauseam Tendrils versus Jund Depths. Again, when we do have the result, we'll let you guys know there. But the match that is in front of us: Peter Tragos, Josh Guibault, Delver Mir. Again, this looks like the Delver deck that people care to play now. No more Rug at this point. We're still stuck with the 3/2 flyer, but no more Rug. No more Tarmogoyf or Nibble Mongoose to really worry about anymore.
Well, we did have one in the top 8.
Yeah.
So it's not completely done. And Delver is actually just, in my mind, happens to be the best thing to back up, Daze and Wasteland with. Yeah. That's actually the core, and Force of Will and the cantrips. That's the core of the deck. Delver of Secrets, obviously, far more efficient than the other creatures, but if you're looking for where's the power of the deck coming from, I believe it's from, as usual, the blue spells printed 10 years ago, or 15 years ago.
Surprise, surprise. Alrighty. Our players are ready. Tragos going to be on the play here as he was able to break serve. Big deal in this matchup being on the play. I think you can say that about every Legacy matchup nowadays, though. You do not want to be on the draw in this format.
No. Daze and Wasteland again. Quite punishing to the person on the draw.
Tragos looks at his hand.
Pretty land heavy, it looks like.
He's going to start off with a Scalding Tarn, so he's got a turn 1 play. We're going to see what it is. Is he cantripping? Is he delvering? Does he have his one Grim Lavamancer? We're going to find all that out in just a moment. There's a Volk.
Volcanic Island over the last year has kind of become the premier dual land of Legacy, supplanting previous blue duels between Rug Delver, Blue-White Red Delver, Sneak and Show. I would say it's the most prevalent one at your average Legacy event.
I'm inclined to agree with you. And it's a Grim Lavamancer, okay. So again, that's a card that takes care of Delver and Stoneforge Mystic. So getting that established right now means that Guibault needs to use 1 to remove spells. He's going to go with Wasteland to take care of this. So maybe a little mana screw tactic.
Hoping that perhaps his hand is non-functional.
Yeah. Well, Flutterstrand says that it's got at least 1 land. Doesn't look like a cantrip, though. So Guibault will take a draw. Wasteland number 2. And Guibault he's the one with a lot of lands now. He's got a bolt, too. Now, the question here is, does he want to use the bolt on the Lavamancer? He's probably going to have to at some point, so.
Yeah, I think he's loath to get this Daze, potentially, so.
And there's a bolt.
And Peter with a Daze in hand, so.
I think he's happy enough dazing this.
I mean, this might be, might reduce his cover against True Name Nemesis. You might expose him to a Wasteland he doesn't really want to slog through right now, but this feels like a pretty good spot to Daze.
So we'll see if Tragos is going to pull the trigger on it or not. Feels like he's going to if he's searching right now, so would be a surprise if he did not. And there's your Daze. He hasn't played land for the turn though. I feel like Guibault might be baiting him a little bit here. Yeah. Because he has the other Wasteland in his hand. So he can actually just steal the initiative. Third Wasteland.
You get another Wasteland.
Bang. Time to go. Guibault's been the one with the mana issues. Tragos gonna float a mana. See if Guibault knows the trick to go to his attack step. So he can get the mana out of the pool. And then he can deploy that Delver if he wants to.
I mean, I think he's still going to hold off to see if Peter has a red source of mana because he doesn't want that Delver killed for nothing.
That's true. Yep, he's just going to pass. Tragos takes a draw. It's a ponder. Attack for 1. Uh-oh. No
So imagine
Landos.
Wasteland just got printed in a Commander product. How are we reacting to this game?
Maybe a little bit of frustration. Yeah, just a smidge.
Blah! Legacy's ruined! Blah!
Yeah. Ponder here for Guibault to start the turn. Brainstorm, Bolt, and a Lavamancer of his own. 3 really good Magic cards.
3 juicy ones.
Yeah. Hard to want to shuffle those back, at least for me.
Well, he doesn't have a red spell to fill up with this turn because his lands are 2 Tundras and another Wasteland.
Mm-hmm.
So that causes him to pump the brakes a little bit, but it's unlikely he's going to find something that productive to do.
And our follow-up is a Delver. So he feels like, okay, I've got this window to play the Delver, and if he does draw a land to kill my Delver, well, I've got a Wasteland to kill the land again. So.
And it has to be volcanic for it to be really bad.
Yep. Tundra, it doesn't matter much. And, you know, fetch line, obviously you can search volcanic, all that good stuff. But it also, the other thing they would do too is if he kills another volcanic, that means that 3 volcanics are gone. So there's a Bolt. Knew that was flipping. And now it is Josh Guibault who is in the driver's seat of this game. The Wasteland on the draw, and tried to manage because the opponent plan has worked here.
Not the first time we've seen this in Delver Mirrors.
No, not at all. And it is rather effective this go around.
And now Josh can kind of outpace the Lavamancer, even if there's a red source of mana on top of Peter's deck.
Yeah. So there's your Delver. You see that's deployed. The flipped one is attacking, and a Grim Lavamancer getting in the red zone here. So, boy, is Guibault in a great spot. Dazes the draw here. And unfortunately for Peter Tragos, I believe, Patrick, this might be coming to an end.
Yes.
We might see a reluctant discard here from Peter. Certainly can't get in the red zone productively. Yep, and he's going to discard Wear and Tear and pass the turn back. You know, again, I feel like he kept a pretty good hand.
Nothing wrong about this hand.
Yeah, didn't come together. Delver flips. Tragos picks it up. He's going to extend the hand. Peter Tragos is defeated by Josh Guibault. Blue Red Delver is moving on to the finals. You see Tragos is going to lay out his hand and say, hey, this is what I had. This is what I kept. And it just did not come together. So Josh Guibault, a player who does have a Legacy Open win, is moving on to the finals here.